Hello and welcome to the Nerds at Large Spoilercast for The Last of Us Part 2. I am one of your hosts, Darby Hallman.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And we are joined by a very, very special guest, Mr. William Outlaw.
Hello, you Seraphites. How are you doing today?
Oh no. I don't know if I want to be the
Scars.
I honestly don't know if there's any faction in this game that I would feel proud of being.
I just want to be in Jackson.
Can I be the dog?
Let me sit
I just want to be one of the
You
dogs.
can be a dog. That's fine. Yeah.
You're gonna die.
Violently kill you, but
Yeah, my fate's gonna be not great. As the title suggests, we are going to be going to spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2, especially since the game came out so long ago. We not bothering with spoiler free. We're going straight into spoilers. And if you're curious, me and Jeff have already recorded a spoiler cast on this. We teamed up with Respawn Aim Fire, which is an awesome podcast you should go listen to. We had a 6-person panel. It was an awesome discussion, and that's where me and Jeff unloaded a lot of our thoughts. We're definitely going to be talking about our thoughts here as well, but this is mostly about Mr. William Outlaw, the main man, the man of the hour, who has now finished the game, and I'm so curious to hear what he thinks, because I honestly, we haven't talked to him about it at all. Like, no, I know that he said that he was feeling a lot of emotions. That's all I know. Which, I mean, of course you are.
I texted you at one moment, and you were just like, "Just keep playing." I was like, "All right, I will."
Yeah, I'm glad he listened.
All I know. Yeah.
Yeah. This conversation would have been a lot harder to have if you had just stopped there. I'd be like, Will.
I hate this game.
All right, so that being said, make sure you have played The Last of Us Part 2 before you keep listening. All right, spoilers now.
Boom.
Will.
Yes.
I'll ask you the general question that's just impossible to answer in a succinct, coherent way. How do you feel? How do you feel about The Last of Us Part 2?
I mean, I think I felt almost every emotion during The Last of Us Part 2. At the end, I think I came away just a little cold and sad, which I think is intentional, like I'm not mad about that per se. I'm glad I felt a way instead of just feeling indifferent. And I didn't really expect to come away from this game feeling happy. So I guess I'm sure we're going to get into the ending and all that kind of stuff, but generally I felt like it was a really interesting story with some faults, but still really good in general. I don't know if it quite lives up to the cohesiveness and tightness of the first one, but I think in terms of like gameplay and just game design and everything, I think it's really, really good. So I liked it a lot. Did you guys like it a lot?
Of course we did. No, it was kind of funny. Like we mentioned the spoiler cast, they had 6 people on there. We were going in wondering how many people are going to not like this, because there was a lot of vitriol going on at the time. There were people that didn't like the game for legitimate reasons, of course. And
Sure.
During that spoiler cast, it was kind of interesting that all 6 of us just absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone loved it in that panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of went into it like feeling it out. It's like we went one by one. I'm like, okay, who's gonna be the one? Who's gonna be the one to like really not like this? It's like, oh no, we were all just like.
I think we got to us last, so we immediately we know.
Okay, let's go. I mean, which is like almost feels kind of rare. I mean, because this is a game that there are like kind of like Jeff said, there's a lot of people. There are people who have criticisms that I think don't make sense or just are being hyperbolic about this game. But I think there are this is one of those games that I completely understand the full range of takes and feelings on this game. I can have an awesome discussion with someone who like really didn't like the game and be like, I understand where you're coming from. And even as I was playing it, I knew that was going to be the case, because this game definitely takes some narrative risks that even by like Last of Us 1 standards, because the end of Last of Us 1 is probably one of my favorite endings ever, and just the way that it kind of catches you off guard. And in a lot of ways, Last of Us Part 2 feels like it started with that type of like pull the rug out from under you ending.
Sure.
And really like it's one of those that like this story did not really feel like it was not a safe AAA, like, we're going to try to please everyone type story. It was like a story that was like very intentional and trying to do some, like, what it wanted to do, knowing that it wasn't going to be completely popular across the board. It just also happens to be one of the most expensive games ever made. You know, so it's a weird combination. It's almost like Blade Runner 2049, which is like one of my favorite movies,
Or Death Stranding.
or Death Stranding, where it's like high budget but also like completely like unshackled. You know, they can.
Kojima tricked everyone.
It's high budget, but with a very specific vision. And I think they hit the vision they wanted. You know, like, I don't think anyone from Naughty Dog would be like, oh man, we didn't like this part of our game. You know, I think they achieved what they wanted to achieve. And if you disagree with the story beats or structure, which I think are probably the two main things that people have problems with, then that's one thing. But I think they achieved what they set out to do. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I was interested, Will. I mean, I think all of us, like, going into this game, at least I know me, Jeff, and Jacob at least, all kind of agreed that at the end of Last of Us 1, if you had asked me, I said multiple times, this game doesn't need a sequel. I kind of hope this game doesn't get a sequel, because I thought that Last of Us 1 was such a perfect package on its own. I'm interested to know, did you feel that way at the time, and how do you feel now? Because I definitely, even though I do think The Last of Us 1 could have stood alone, I think The Last of Us Part 2 did such a good job of like playing out and living out the ending of the first one. Like people talk about in this game, Joel, like, you know, Joel doesn't matter in this game, or Joel, like, you know, Joel's irrelevant. It was like, no, Joel is this game, and just in a very,
That's interesting.
in a very different type of way. Like Joel's fingerprints and Joel's decision at the end of the first Last of Us completely dictates this game. I don't know. I know I kind of rambled on, but like, what do you think about? Good. Yeah, what did you think about this?
No, yeah, that is interesting. Because, you know, I think there is a certain part of me that's like, there definitely is a part of me that wish we could see Joel at least in a mission or two at the beginning where we're able to partner with him again. But you're right in terms of like, yeah, his DNA, his decision at the end of the first game is what drives the entire narrative of the second one. And I do like that. I am glad that they had a little bit of a time gap, so it wasn't like, I don't know, like right after the first one, you immediately step into Ellie's shoes. I don't think that quite would have been as exciting. Especially since we know that they probably went back to Jackson. I don't know exactly what they would do. But I think from the onset, you knew that this story had to be about what are the Fireflies or the remaining people going to do if they ever find Joel. And I think we obviously saw the answer to that throughout the entire second game. So I'm glad with that basic story premise for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think about the opening thing about Joel dying right away? Because me and Jeff had a very similar reaction where, like, I understand other people's reaction not being as positive, but that moment was one of those moments where I was like, all right, fuck, they got me, and I like it excited me. I mean, that was one of the most visceral moments I've ever had. Like, I legitimately like went back in my chair, like, oh god, oh no, because like me and Jeff have talked about this a lot. When that scene starts and he says, "Oh, y'all look like y'all know me" or something, like I still thought like, okay, he's gonna be hurt, but he's gonna get out of this. And then like shotgun blast, I'm like, oh, Joel's never walking again.
Yeah. And then it kept going.
And I don't know, like I get what you mean saying that you wish we had like another mission as Joel at the beginning, but I kind of feel like that's the point. They're leaving you wanting that. You're wanting that thing you never got. I think it kind of,
that's a good point.
It had to happen abruptly and before you really got to connect with Joel again in this game, because that's why it meant so much, because it was took you off guard, you know? Yeah.
They did a good job trying to hide that and kind of throw you off the scent. And so it's like, okay, this makes sense, obviously, but making you think all of the market stuff. Oh, Dana's the one who's going to get killed, and that's why Ellie's going to revenge. And having some fake scenes where Joel's there later in the game, where obviously he wasn't in there. It's trailers, but I'm okay with that because, I like that surprise. I think it worked.
I think you're right in the sense of like, it's not a bad thing to leave the game or for the game to leave you wanting something, right? So I think it is interesting in terms of it really putting you in Ellie's shoes and where you're like, man, I wish I could have had one more moment with him. And that's an interesting analysis of that. I didn't really think of that. So I do like that. Were y'all spoiled on anything?
So, I saw some spoilers, which I now know are fake. So I went through the whole game thinking Ellie was going to die.
Same.
So during that whole last part, I was like, okay, when's this going to turn around? When's Abby going to like shove me in the water and drown me? Or is like during that last scene, it's like, okay, is she going to kill herself here? What's going on?
So the only thing I saw was one comment that said Joel dies, Ellie dies. So I went into it assuming that Joel was going to die. And then unfortunately, pretty early on, I actually accidentally like scrolled past the YouTube video of like Joel's death, but it was quick enough to where I didn't know where it was in the game. So when it happened, an hour and a half into the game, I was still really shocked. So even with that knowledge of Joel maybe possibly dying in the game, I certainly did not think it was going to happen that soon. So I did text a friend whenever you first jump into Abby's role, like at the very beginning of the game. I guess you have another intermission and then you switch back to Abby whenever she's like going down to Jackson or whatever and has to escape from the zombies. When I was playing as her for the second time, I think it is, I literally texted a friend and was like, I have this terrible assumption that the game is going to make me kill Joel with Abby. And that's all I left it at. And I kid you not, like a minute later is that scene that you're talking about where she leads back into the Fireflies and she's like, it looks like y'all know me from somewhere. And yeah, it was awful. I mean, I am thankful that the game didn't make me like press the button because I really thought it was going to make me do that. But it still had that shock value and really did like set the story forth in a pretty great way, even if it was saddening, which again, I think is the point of a lot of this game. So
yeah, and I think this whole premise, I mean, we go back to just not being a safe thing. I think there are so many ways this could have gone wrong.
Like this video
could go wrong. Yeah, Will, this is gonna happen every now and then. This is how Discord works for us, unfortunately.
That's so weird.
It literally does this with everyone. How do I turn the...
Well, at least it's not just me. That would make me feel bad.
All right, there we are. Okay. All right. Sorry, well, I was saying about this, just like this story, like on paper, if you tell me that this story is going to be about, this like ex-Firefly person comes, kills Joel super early, and then you play as Joel's killer in the second half, and we're trying to like basically have like two halves of like a similar type of experience, and like, trying to like these characters going through parallel like similar journeys or whatever, I would have been like, I don't know, guys. This sounds like it's going to be very hard to pull off.
It sounds like high art, like an art film or something. Like, what is happening?
I mean, I just would have been, and I bet you in those pitch meetings, I bet you there was a lot of apprehensive people like, Neil, are you sure?
Are you sure you want to do this?
Are you sure? But I think because it like reached for something that hard to do, I really think for me at least, it made the execution of it that much better. And just the arc that you go on with Abby, and what I think is so strong about it is like, from the moment you start playing as Abby, you know what they're doing. You're going to play back through Abby, and they're going to try to make you, they're going to humanize Abby and make you realize that, all this stuff. Like, you can see that a mile away. They're not hiding that whatsoever. But even knowing that that's what they're driving for, and I know Will was, because he was texting me, and I think you're kind of supposed to be a little cynical when you start Abby. Yeah, I think you are like intended, and that's something that video games, like movies, do it all the time. Like, there's a lot of movies that are like not fun to watch intentionally. I think this game, like, that moment is not supposed to be gratifying. It's supposed to be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play as her. I don't, whatever. And the fact that they're able to take that, and I've heard so many people say they started that way at the beginning of Abby, and by the time they got to the end, like me, and I'm interested to see Will, I'll stop hogging the mic, but by the time I got to the end, I had not really thought about it in my head. But when we got to the Abby Ellie fight, my brain just had to like make a split second, like, what do I want to happen here? And I wanted Abby to survive. When I got to the end there, I was like, I love Ellie to death, but it's like, it's none of these characters fit into a mold. It's all just like, I don't know. It's interesting.
I had a different reaction, or we might have talked about this before. When the Abby first started, I was like, hell yeah, let's do this, baby.
I was that too. But it's like,
I know what you're doing. Take me on this ride, Naughty Dog.
Yeah, I think that's probably the point of most contention, I feel like, in the game, maybe besides Joel's death. Do you think?
Those two for sure. Probably the Abby part is built off the first one, so I'd say the Abby part in particular is probably more so, depending on the person, of course.
So I don't think I ended up enjoying those portions as much as other people that I've seen. I certainly, I think I did grow to appreciate some of the supporting characters in her storyline, specifically Manny, I think his name is, and who's the other one? Owen, I didn't think was a bad character.
Actually. I love
Owen.
I thought Owen was a very strong character.
Yeah, I think both those characters were good. We'll get to the Seraphite people, I'm sure, later. I thought their characters were not as strong, and I thought that whole storyline was kind of weird. But I liked Abby her portion of the game. I think it maybe dived into the action. Like there were part of her games that felt like a old Resident Evil to me, and not in a good way. Do you feel that? No,
I definitely agree. There was I think and I get how it could be a lot of other people's favorite part of the game, and I absolutely more power to it. I get it; it's fun, but my least favorite part of the game was the hospital nemesis boss fight, basically, with Abby, and even some of the other things. Even when you were climbing on the tower, there was parts of that, her fear of heights and all that. There was definitely moments of that really got me. But there was definitely times where it's like, am I playing Uncharted right now? It's just got kind of
that whole getting to, I forget the exact section. Yeah, going for the tower thing. There are a couple of Abby parts in particular. Was like this section in particular is maybe a little long. Not necessarily don't take any pieces out of her story, but you could have shortened some of those pieces at least a little bit.
I mean, I think my constant source of criticism, I think, towards the game is really just the structure. I think that I understand why you would do 3 days of Ellie and then have that incredible moment where they meet and then, go back to Abby's side of the story. And they do that in movies, like you said, a lot to really great effect. But I think when you're playing a game that is longer than it should be, I think, I finished at 28 hours. I don't know what y'all finished at.
I was not too much shorter than that.
Yeah, so I think it just doesn't quite have the same punch whenever you're playing a game of that length. So maybe if they had somehow shortened Abby's part, which I don't think would have been as fun, but I really do think they maybe should have done Seattle Day 1, Seattle Day 1, Seattle Day 2, just so that there's that variation, even if it didn't have quite the same impact in the middle of the game. Just because I did feel like I felt like I was playing as Abby so I could go see what happens to Ellie, which I think you're supposed to start feeling that way, and then you're supposed to like Abby a little bit more, but I never quite felt that attached to Abby. Not in that way, anyway. So
I think that is the risk you run with that choice, is that it's not going to hit everyone the same way. I think me and Jeff both kind of had that ramping up of Abby to where I started getting really wrapped up in that story. But I do agree. Me and Jeff have said a bunch of times, this game can and should be shorter, not because there's fluff story content, but there's just fluff environmental and levels and everything that could have just because honestly, I would not want to take any story bits out of this. Even the smaller, seemingly inconsequential things were huge for character development. There were so many awesome little character moments between everyone, but like, yeah, I mean, by the time we got to the end, to be honest, I guess, especially, I mean, I was feeling it before then, but especially when we get to Santa Barbara, I was done with the combat. When I got into combat encounters, I was like, all right, let's just get through this. I mean, because the combat is really good, but I don't think it's 28 hours good. You know, like he's,
Did y'all play on normal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I played the original Last of Us on hard somehow. But yeah, I intentionally played on normal because I knew I would get just too frustrated and not enjoy the story. And even, like you're saying, near the end, even near the end with Abby I felt like I was just kind of, I don't know, I wasn't even like really trying that much. I was just like trying to get to the next section, which I think is a problem probably in a game like that.
I unintentionally did that because I suck. So I get caught and then just beeline to the exit for there. And I was like for my head, it's like, in this situation, clearly outnumbered, Ellie would just run as fast as she could and try to avoid damage.
I will say I did appreciate how on Abby's portion of the story, it does do a good job of making you feel like you're progressing a lot faster than you are, because there's like so much more pills or medication or whatever. There's a lot more gun upgrades really early, so it does feel like you're progressing a lot more. But like when I first turned into Abby, I was like, great, I have 2 guns and no stats again, and that was frustrating at first. But you know, it was all right. I'm not mad about it. I just think it was not as effective for me as maybe it was for others.
And I think it's a problem of like, this is like twice as big as the biggest like Naughty Dog game. Like Uncharted 4 was probably the longest game. You know, even under Uncharted 4 it was too long. And then this was just, again, I mean, the combat, I mean, I think, and I'm interested to talk to you about the combat too. I think the combat in this game is better than the first one in pretty much every single way.
Absolutely.
But I think it's not that the combat is bad. Like, the combat being bad is not like the reason why I got tired of it at the end. It's just, I think a game like this is not supposed to be 30 hours long.
Well, just the kind of game this is, there's only so much you can do with combat encounters because it's more grounded. Besides the weird Nemesis monster thing they put in there, like there's not much you can do. So yeah,
which honestly, even that kind of felt like a desperate plea for variety. That kind of felt like we need something. We need something else. You know, we need something different. Sorry, go ahead.
People like this Resident Evil shit.
Yeah,
it's like, at some point that stuff can get old. There's not really much you can do about it as far as a game design thing without really changing the systems like partway through the game. In my opinion,
sure.
I don't know. I'm not a game designer. I don't know this shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did need to take, like, I don't know, just find somehow to make probably Seattle Day 1. I mean, that's the longest one with the most fluff easily that you can make shorter, but somehow just cut out 4 hours or whatever, and I think it would have been a tighter experience. But it is just crazy when you think of Last of Us 1 and you're done with the game in like 10 hours maybe, and this is 3 times that length. That's a lot. So,
but what did you think about the just the side characters and just some of on both arcs, like just some of the way that like Tommy was fleshed out, the way that Dina was fleshed out, all these other ones? Because I mean, you're a pretty big fan of the Uncharted games and everything, right? Yeah. I mean, I think this really did show. I know people say it a lot, but I think it's honestly true. Naughty Dog is kind of in a league of their own when it comes to just character interactions and just like small moments and making it feel not game like. We're just like, especially you're walking around that open world area with like Dina and Ellie, and they had conversations, and it never felt like, I walked here so the game has to like fill the air with something. It just felt like these two people are traveling and talking. Like they.
I mean, that was a big part of Last of Us 1 and why you fell in love with Joel and Ellie, and they just kind of took that and expanded it, and obviously worked with more characters because you were playing as Abby and Ellie, so fill in about their lives and then the characters they meet and all that, because there was probably more of a cast on both sides that you traveled with than in Last of Us 1. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really liked Dina. I think she kind of surprised me, actually. I didn't come into it thinking she would be a very exciting character. I wish she was in it more, actually. I was disappointed whenever they kind of like sidelined her, which, I mean, for good reason, I guess. She's pregnant.
The old pregnant lady running out there shooting bombs.
Yeah, but I do wish I had more time with her, like, actually in combat and stuff, because I think the best part, well, I don't know about best part, but like one of the more enjoyable parts of the game is when you're just kind of exploring with her in Seattle the first day in that open world part. So I liked her a lot. Like I said, Owen was good. I can't remember if you actually do like a gameplay mission with Owen. I don't think you do. But
maybe briefly in a flashback. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think in the
Manny I thought was
separated from her.
Yeah. Manny I thought was funny and really good, and I think it was. So obviously there's two characters that come to a shock when they die. Right?
Yep.
Two? Yeah. So you have Manny, who was shot by Tommy, which I thought was an incredible interaction. Which I think we should talk about maybe the interaction between the two storylines later. But that was really great. And the death of Jesse obviously is pretty shocking. I didn't come to love Jesse as much, but it was still like, oh, he's dead. You know, like there was no second guessing that. And that was a pretty shocking moment.
I mean, the Jesse moment was the thing that I think for me and Jeff both that like we've said it a lot with like Walking Dead and Game of Thrones that both turned out to like stop doing this, but we've said it with a lot of different things where it's like, oh, anyone can die at any moment. I've never truly believed that as much as I have in this game, like especially after that Jesse moment. I did really like Jesse, and I was really starting to like Jesse the most right before he died. But after that happened, like I really did like that worked for me to instill the fear inside me that it's like anyone could go at any moment.
Well, especially since I thought the whole game that Ellie was going to die. Once you do both play as Abby and Ellie and get through the dailies for both of them, you're playing as Abby and doing that Ellie fight. I was thinking, it's like, is Ellie gonna die here? And then we just play as Abby for the rest of the game. The fact that I thought that was a legitimate possibility, I love that, just because, you know, because the way they did it up to that point, it's like, oh yeah, there's no reason for me to believe that any character can't die at this point. Because I think at that point we thought Tommy was also dead because he got shot in the fucking face. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was on Sacred Symbols a few weeks ago. I can't remember what they were talking about, but Chris was just kind of mentioning the fact of how like unsettling like actual human gunshots are, like when someone actually dies from a gunshot, and how this just like over like that. There's no like drama or anything. And I think we did get some of that drama in Joel, which was appreciated and probably needed. But yeah, for the deaths of Jesse and Manny, it felt so real with how fast they just died. There was nothing to say. There was no fanfare, that it really did come off as like unnerving in a good way for that type of realism in a game. So I think those were good two character moments that I didn't see coming.
And with just the whole pregnancy with Dina and everything, like we're conditioned to feel like, oh, Jesse has this whole arc that we're building up to. Like there's obviously they're going all these places with it. But like you said, in real life, you don't get to finish your character arc. If a bullet goes through your face, you're dead.
Exactly.
You know, and that can just happen in an instant like that. And it's just a different vibe. It's one of those things. I love it. I would not want every game I ever play to be this type of tone of like, you know, like super realistic, everything can happen every moment. But I do think that this is something that I don't really think I've really seen in a video game before, at least not at this level of like true, you know, realism to this degree. You know, Red Dead is the like Red Dead's the only other one.
Yeah, the Red Dead and Last of Us are kind of level in their own as far as that kind of stuff goes.
At least for me, yeah.
Yeah, so how did you, I guess the only ones that we haven't talked about is Yara and Levi. Is that his name? Lev. Yeah, so how did y'all feel about them?
Well, it was great. I liked Yara too, but she was one of those characters that, you know, died just died suddenly, and they couldn't completely build her character up much more. from what I can remember, more than being Lev's sister too much.
Yeah.
And her story thing was kind of to be like Lev was leaning on her, and then she's gone in an instant. So like Abby kind of has to become that person for Lev. You know, that was kind of.
So she filled her purpose.
Yeah. I really did personally like both of them. I get the feeling that you don't, so like I'm interested to talk about that. But I really didn't expect it. Like going in when we first met them, I really did kind of feel like, yeah, I don't know. This like we're meeting yet another group of people with yet another backstory and everything. It's like I don't know how this is gonna go, and like I didn't completely vibe with them at first because also like just because of the their background and being with the Seraphites and everything, they're kind of like emotionless and monotone and everything else. But I thought the arc of like Lev slowly opening up to Abby as it goes like really, really worked for me. And then by the time we got to the end, like I felt the similar level of like wanting to protect this kid that I did with Joel and Ellie in the first game. Like that's it really is. I mean, that's obviously the parallel they're going for. But by the time I got to the end of it, it was like, I mean, honestly, at the very end when Ellie like brought the knife up to Lev, like my thought was like,
"Don't you touch that boy!
You don't touch that boy!" Yeah, I thought the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what did you think? What did you think about there?
I mean, well, I think first of all, like I think the whole backdrop of the wolves and the Seraphites like conflict is awesome.
Yes.
I love the idea of Seattle just being like this war zone between these two factions, and unfortunately, I think the Seraphites were actually really underserved in the game. I think they had this really memorable introduction with the whistling and everything. And then I felt like they just kind of became a like faceless enemy for you to slaughter as Abby. Even if you did have Lev and Yara with you, which was, I don't know, disappointing because I think it could have been really fascinating to see more of that faction, I guess. Did y'all feel that at all?
It's a weird thing where I get what you're saying, and I can definitely see why people would feel that way. But after coming out the end of it, it's one of those things where you would think, the way they built it up, you would have like one final confrontation against like their leader or something. But
Sure, yeah.
it also, it didn't necessarily need that for the story, in my opinion. I mean, maybe they could have done more of them. I think they did a good job building up the lore and everything for them, even if like a lot of it you had to get through, the papers and stuff. You would define and all that and get a better idea of the bullies. But I think generally what they did with them was good, but I can definitely see and kind of agree to a point why, you would feel the way you do.
Well, and
Sure,
I kind of,
yeah.
for me, it worked a lot because of the point it comes in the story. Because by that point, like, you don't see a lot of the Seraphites and like their like growth or whatever or in person, but through the wolves, you actually, at least I felt like I knew a good bit about them. Just you heard going through how much like the wolves hate the Seraphites, and they're saying this over and over and over again. But then it's moments like Owen talking about sparing the Seraphite person or whatever, and like moments like that, and then Lev talking about the like you got enough. Like I didn't really need and I honestly didn't want to see like flashy crazy Seraphite thing. Like I kind of liked how they were a little more subtle with the wolf Seraphite conflict, and you're more like you are hearing from the perspective of people who have been entrenched in this war for years and years and years, and getting the backstory that way. And by the time you get to that point, the game has already drilled in your head over and over again that there are no good guys and bad guys.
Oh yeah, well, I'm about to bring up something I really like at the end of when you're on the Seraphites Island and everything is that both sides are trying to kill you.
Yeah,
but like for reasons that
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense within stories. It's like, okay, we're hiding for this, and then you're discovered by the wolves. Like, Abby, what did you just do? Kill her! And I really like that part. Also, I just want to bring up real quick something that's just kind of funny thinking about it. Like when you meet Yara and Lev, it's the scene from that trailer we saw years ago.
Yeah.
It's funny to think we thought Abby was Ellie's mom.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't even.
That was
that
one of the
was the
theories.
theory that part of the reason they're going to do is like they're going to do flashbacks where you play as Ellie's mom and
that's
stuff.
funny.
That was a popular theory, and that's kind of
really
funny.
I do think it's interesting. I know we're jumping around a lot, but like that kind of made me think, because I definitely want to talk about the other scene. Like, it's interesting that the two kind of extended scenes that we got, like that one and the
really late in the game
church scene or whatever, but both of them have such a different tone in the game than they did pre-release in those trailers. You know, like, and I actually probably that whole Dina Ellie kiss happening where it does in the story might be my favorite choice in this entire game. I don't know what it is about it, but like the fact that we kind of started this Last of Us journey watching that, but then like where it comes at the end after everything that happened, and like then you get that scene with like Ellie and Joel at the end of that. It was just like, I don't know, it felt, it was like I was watching the same thing but through such a different lens. It was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt like I was waiting the whole game to see that trailer again. I was like, it has to be in here somewhere.
Well, funny is, Darby, when we were both just partway through, we're talking like, oh, they're just not putting that scene in the game. They just made it for a trailer. We're like, oh, that's kind of cool, because I thought they did well enough like just explaining what happened through the dialogue and character interactions and stuff that they didn't need in there. They didn't, like Darby said when they did it, it was like, okay, this is great too.
Yeah, got it. It's hard to put into words, but
it is kind of wild that like the two unique trailers that they showed, one was like past the 50% mark in the game and the other was past like the 90% mark in the game. Like,
but it worked for both purposes. It worked for selling the game at the beginning, and it also worked just as well, if not better, for punctuating it at the end to me. And like, I don't know, I just like it's something like The Last of Us Part 2 almost in a weird way reminds me of like books that I love, where it's like, I don't know many games that have done the whole like flashback stuff quite as well as this. With the way that they drip feed you information, I think was so just perfect. And like the moment you learn that Ellie actually knew this whole time what Joel had done, I think it comes at the perfect moment. If that had come at the very beginning, it would change the way you look at Ellie's entire first arc. But the fact that you've been going through this whole thing and you're like, you know, she kind of figures, but she doesn't completely know. And then you do all this, and then you realize, oh shit, this whole time she's known. It's like just little things like that. It just like makes you, I don't know. It makes you contemplate the things that you literally just did.
And
it's like,
and just kind of that whole time before that, you're waiting for them to kind of tell Ellie, because that can potentially make her change the way she thinks about what she's doing. Right, but it's like, oh no, we now know. Oh, she knows all this and she still wants to do this anyway. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
she ain't backing down.
Yeah. Those small flashbacks were incredibly effective for those purposes.
And just I mean, God, all like the museum. It's just like they're just trying to get the tears out.
What I really liked about them is because since we didn't get Joel in the present, just giving us that taste of Joel and Ellie just kind of through the years and kind of what they've been through to kind of get the relationship to where it is, where we see them at the beginning of the game, I think was really well done. And also, when we get to Abby and kind of build her relationships more through why she feels the way she did, or why she did what she did to Joel, and just kind of her relationship with the other characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I did. So I didn't call it early on, but as soon as we saw the father of Abby, I was like, he's got to be one of the doctors, right? And I thought, like, even though I was able to call that whenever I saw him, I think that was... I know, like, for some that might be a little too contrived for their tastes, but for me, I thought that was really effective. I thought it was really, really great storytelling to have the doctor the only doctor who you're required to kill, by the way, in the original Last of Us, be the be the Joel figure for Abby. I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's just, it's so cool because I didn't quite have the experience that everyone else did. I mean, I talk about you getting Abby and you're supposed to dread that. I had a little bit of that, but I also I was someone, I didn't need to be convinced that Joel could be seen as a villain. I thought at the end of the first one, that was part of what I loved about the end of the first one, is that you as the player have to wrestle with the fact that you really love and care about Joel, but what he just did was fucked up, and you understand why he did it, and you might have done it yourself, but it has consequences. And it was that was like the villain thing to do, as much as like that, this is showing. So like I didn't need convincing of that fact, but still the way that you get to the end and like I've seen people online arguing about the like, oh, Abby did this, this, and this, and it's like, well, Ellie did this, this, and this. I mean, like, come on. It's like no one comes out of this good or bad. Like everyone.
Except
Allie's,
JJ.
You have to wrestle with the fact that you love Joel, but like simultaneously, yeah, he killed Abby's father. Of course, she's going.
Well, and doomed all of humanity. There's that little fact too.
What?
He also doomed all of humanity.
He also doomed all of humanity. Just a little fact, yeah.
That's enough to get people a little mad.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the theme of the game is obviously very clearly that who the good guys and the bad guys are dependent on whose side you are on, yes. Which I think is a interesting theme, and especially a good theme to portray in a video game where you are like legitimately able to experience both sides, where you're not really able to do that so much in other media. Even if it did come off across as a little like maybe preachy at times, I still think it was effective in that way. So yeah, there was definitely moments for me, like the Nora kill was one of the biggest ones for me, where it's like, okay, this is the game saying like, you have to press square, I kind of felt the game developers being like, don't you feel bad? It's right. Like, there was definitely moments where like I think it was maybe a little too heavy-handed, but for the most part, I think it just touched on such an interesting theme that I think they nailed in a lot of ways. Apparently, I was reading, where was I looking this up? Oh, I was watching some YouTube video with Corey Barlog, like from a couple years ago, and he was talking about Peter Jackson's King Kong game. I don't know if y'all played that. Did y'all play that?
No.
Apparently, you like literally play as both sides of the conflict in that game. And I scrolled down for the comments, and they were like, Peter Jackson's King Kong did Last of Us 2 before Last of Us 2. I was like, that's amazing.
Do they like really make you care about Godzilla's side of this? Like, Godzilla's just misunderstood.
Yeah, I don't know.
Neil Druckmann's seen that, it's like, they found out.
They got something.
They know I'm hacked.
Jumping back to the Seraphites real quick, I did like how for Ellie's side of the story, how they just like happen to be there, like they just ambush you and you never really see them again. I think that's really cool. Like you just kind of dive into that part of the story and she's just like, what the heck was that? And then you just don't really see them again. I thought that was cool. And then obviously it's fleshed out more with Abby. I never really got
Go ahead. You go.
I never really got to talk about Yara and Lev. I didn't dislike them. I think they are okay characters. I didn't feel like the Abby that I knew that I was playing as would like go and save them. I didn't really feel that connection as much as I think they wanted me to have. So maybe that kind of influenced how I thought of them a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. I did like their connection like after she saved them. I think that was nice. But yeah, just like that initial act of her like going back to help them was at least a little out of character from what I thought she would do. So like I understand the like cult aspect of the Seraphites, and I think that's really interesting and something that would have been fun to delve into a little bit more. But I guess the whole idea of Lev being used to be Lily, I felt like, as a Christian, I felt like that was almost like a little bit of attacking of faith and like not, I don't know, what's the word? God, I don't know. Just like not taking other people in that are different than you. And I felt like that was a little like almost attack on like religion in general for some reason. So maybe that's why I felt a little bit differently about those two characters, just from my perspective. Even if I did appreciate Lev like in Abby's interactions later. So
yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, I can see I can kind of see that, but I also think that it's in a very similar way. It's very reflective of what trans people actually have to deal with
Sure.
not being able to come out to their families or come out to anywhere else or whatever. And like obviously it's on a post-apocalyptic crazy out there like
Sure.
version of it, but I think it like reflected a lot of truth and a lot of things in there. And I don't think the Seraphites were seen as just like completely cartoonishly evil too. There was like good sides of it and everything, but like I don't know. I think there was an element of that, but I think it was more focused on, at least the way I saw it, more focused on Discord problems again. It always has to do with a few times. It was more focused on reflecting a trans person and what they have to go through and like kind of the shame and like anxiety and everything they go through, more so than a commentary on like religion and Christianity. At least the way I saw it, and
That's fair. Yeah.
As far as oh, go ahead,
Jeff.
I was saying like a way to, like Dari said, they were trying to show that just kind of like a more over top way because it is post-apocalyptic and make it sound. And I know I can definitely see why that would seem like an attack, but a cult's kind of the best way to do it, like for a systematic thing in a post-apocalyptic thing, or at least one of the ways to do it.
But I guess it was also. Go ahead, Darby. I need to think about what I was going to say.
I was going to say, I can understand. This is interesting because it's something that I had not really thought of and seen much. I mean, there is definitely an element of the like, look, these are the people that have completely traditional values. They live off the earth. They do all this. Like everything they do is like seen as kind of like backwards. I can see how you could see that as like that's commenting, saying like, Christianity, organized religion, hates trans people, hates these people,
right.
Whatever. I can get that, and I can see where you're coming from that perspective.
And it's not like I was like horribly offended. I was like, I just felt like that was a subtle commentary on like current day events or like how people perceive current events to be, and I felt like that may have been a little ham-fisted.
This is the type of complaint I can understand the like this being a commentary on Christianity and everything, and like maybe not a very like nice and accurate one or whatever. What I can't get behind is why is there a trans character in this game, because it's like
I did want to talk about that because I think I on Sacred Symbols as well. I think Colin was saying like, yeah, I mean, there are trans people in the world today. Why wouldn't there be one in the post-apocalyptic? And I thought that was a really interesting point. I was curious. I mean, I would expect not, but did you feel like there was almost like a forcing of, well, obviously we have a lesbian in Ellie, a bisexual in Dina, and now a transsexual in Lev? Did you feel like that was any sort of force?
No, not in any way for me, because I mean, personally, I always hate that argument because just no one would ever say it's forced for a straight relationship to be in any game, and gay, trans, and bi people exist in the world, and it's not like this game only had gay, trans. I mean, there was literally a sex scene between like Abby and Owen.
Which was like, I did not like that at all. I don't know what was happening in that.
It was
like, I was like, cut away, please.
Maybe it went on a little too long. I was like,
yeah.
But like, I think that there are times when gay characters or whatever can like they're like I'm not like closing the door to there are times where it's like very obvious that a creator just did this to like pander to people or whatever in a way.
Sure.
Like a lot of times that's more so like we're going to take this existing character and just like drastically change them in this way, which whatever. But this I just can't see it. I can't see it here because this is just the existence of characters, and it's not even saying like, I mean, like the gay main character is a bad person. It's not saying like the lesbian comes and saves the day and does this. It's like, no, I think we've gotten to a point in what we need for good representation is you need to be able to have gay characters that are heroes and villains and everywhere in between, because they're people. And, that I think just the existence of them in here it can't be forced. It's just there. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, the amount of people who were like upset that like Ellie is gay in this game, it's like, did you play the first one?
What?
Yeah,
this isn't new news, people.
Yeah, I mean, and I honestly kind of think that was a really interesting development for Left Behind to go into. I think that was fascinating. Yeah, so I mean, like Dina and Ellie's relationship, I thought was great in concept. I like them. Yeah, I mean, I think it did. It felt a little bit more forced for Lev, but I mean, like that's just one person, one person's perspective. I totally get how, yeah, like I said, how Chris was like, or Colin was like, yeah, I mean, like these people are in the world. Why wouldn't they be in this this other world? So I totally get that too. But yeah, I think by and large, the people who are saying like there's too much diversity or something, that I think that's pretty extreme for this game.
Yeah. No, the world has diversity. Just people are used to their entertainment not having it in a lot of ways. I mean, it's like,
that's true.
If anything, I think this is a more accurate representation of like there are people of all walks of life doing all manner of good and bad things, and
Yeah, I mean, very cool that we get two women to play as in this game. Very cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly do think it's pretty cool that like one of the top selling and biggest games of the year had a lesbian protagonist and an openly trans character, and all these things.
But Will, the real problem is that we need to talk about is why does Abby have muscles?
Yeah, what the hell?
Why was that a controversy?
Like I didn't get the controversy. She definitely has man arm.
I mean, she's jacked. She turned herself into a killing machine. Like
I know.
That was literally part of the story, is that she's tearing apart her real relationships just to become a murder machine.
Well, I like how Naughty Dog
wanted a supermodel.
I like how Naughty Dog just kind of openly like had that big gem that you had to walk by in the beginning. Like, this is how she got muscles. This is where she worked out. Look at this equipment.
Look at the burrito she's eating.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that wasn't even really necessary. Like, yeah, I can't get behind it. Even if she was like slightly more muscular than she really could be, which she's not. I mean, like there are like real examples of women, and especially with her body build, getting like that. But even if, I think it's pretty telling that this is the thing that you decide to laser focus on and like go up the arms on. Not when like Lara Croft fights off a bunch of people, jumps through the jungle, does all this, but she still has perfect smoky eye and makeup. So everything's great.
But
I mean, yeah, it's just another part of the realism of the game, which it does well.
But so well, just before I forget this, I need to ask you. I've asked this of every person.
Oh boy!
When you play as Abby and you go to the docks and you're going as that sniper, how long until you realize it was Tommy?
Until, let's see, when was it? I guess it was like around the point. I think it was like right after Manny died. Honestly, I think it was just before the point where she's like, when I guess it's Lev or Yara that's like, who is that? And she's like, nothing, doesn't matter. It was before that part, because I think that was like confirmation, but it was pretty late, like for sure.
Yeah, I was a big dum-dum. So it's like it was around when Manny died too. I was like, oh fuck, this is Tommy. Like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
They literally like made you do a sniping mission with him. It's like, what about?
I got it right away, baby.
I was an
Really?
idiot. Yeah,
I figured it out after 2 seconds. Like, oh, this is Tommy.
Dang.
Because they
No, yeah,
mentioned
but-
by the docks or whatever in Ellie's part.
Yeah, that honestly, I think that was probably my favorite part of Abby's whole mission, or whole storyline. One thing that if they were going to change the structure or not, I would have appreciated some sort of more cohesion, I feel like, between the days, because I felt like really that was besides like the storm approaching, I feel like the interaction with Tommy was the only thing that like felt like there was some sort of cohesion between the 3 days in Seattle.
So Yeah, as far as like overworld things, but what I kind of really liked about it and why I'm okay with them doing all of Ellie and then all of Abby is, going through Ellie and like you're going through all the stuff trying to find Abby, and you're going to all these random places that you heard she's at. Like, what is she doing? It sounds like she has nothing to do with any of this. You find at some point that she's being hunted by these people. Like, what's going on? I kind of like that mystery, and then you get into Abby. It's like, this is why she went to all these random places, and this is why the wolves wanted after her, and all that kind of stuff. So I like that part of them completely separating it.
It was a little more of a subtle connection than they decided to go for just like one or two like big like, hey, look, this is this, but for the rest of it,
I like the little subtle part of the hospital or whatever. When you go there as Ellie or whatever, there's this dog, a dog in there. I know a lot of them, but it stood out to me because this is like about the only dog where they repeatedly said his name, Bear. And I don't know if I ended up killing Bear. Or I think I did, but I remember what I do remember is, I don't know if you did this, Will. I killed the person that was walking Bear. Bear didn't do anything but walk around the body and just whine. I was like, oh.
I've done that. I did that one time where I just killed the owner, and the dog just like stayed.
But what I was getting at, then that's the one that stood out to me where I actually remember the name. Probably they named the other dogs because they named all the other people, but that's one I felt like they kept on saying over and over again. And that's it stuck with me. But then you meet Bear as the only other dog in the beginning of Abby's thing, and then when you're at the hospital with Abby, when you're walking out, like, oh hey Bear, you're here too. He's like, oh fuck, fuck. So there's just like little stuff like that I like.
There's the PlayStation Vita lady.
Yeah, Vita girls.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just like, I thought it would be cool to see, like, I don't know, like if you're exploring, when you go down with Nora as Ellie, if there was like just some sort of well, I guess no. I was gonna say I wish you could like maybe see some evidence of the Rat King or something, just like something to kind of build off of the days interacting with each other a little bit more. I did. One friend that I was talking to was talking about how like he felt like it would have been much better if Abby's Seattle Day 3 chapter happened before Ellie's, so that because whenever you're playing as Abby, obviously Owen and his wife or whatever are already dead, and I think that is part of where the whole split kind of falls apart a little bit, because it would have been fascinating if you didn't quite know if Owen and his wife died before Abby's part or whatever.
Yes.
So there's give and take.
That's what I've heard that a lot, and I completely 100% understand that. And like I thought like that was going through my head at times where I'm like, okay, we already know the fate of these people, and I totally get how that could like take it away from you. For me, it honestly kind of enhanced it in a weird way, because like
gives you dread.
Well,
You're like,
crap. It kind of went with the whole nature of this game, is that like these things happen so fast and these bad things have happened, and you've killed, like, you're supposed to want the revenge kind of like Ellie does, and you go for it, but then kind of it's really sad, but knowing the fate of Owen and them, and then like kind of seeing like, all right, this is what you just snuffed out pretty much. This is like now you get to see the life that just got abruptly ended. For me, that actually, I kind of am glad it went this way, because that was really powerful to me. It made, even though like those Owen and Abby scenes, I really do love their relationship a lot, and like the whole Ferris wheel scene, like I was bought into like everything in their relationship, but every part of it had a tinge of sadness. It had a tinge of like, where this is going, and it's not you. Not only do you know where this is going, that the character that you love was responsible for ending this, and that's why I still, like a month later, am still thinking about this game constantly, because there's just so many little dynamics like that.
I like how you go through Abby's thing and you're like, I know all you people die, except you, Manny. I don't know what happened to you. What happened? Oh, you got Tommy. Okay.
Please tell me you got away. Just go. Manny, run. Just run. Get out of here.
It's like, okay, I know we're getting close to the end. Manny, you might be there. Oh, shit. Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy. Well, I definitely want to talk about the ending, and I also want to talk about some combat. And if you have, I mean, do you have any more you want to talk about combat? 'Cause we brushed on it a little bit, but I mean,
Combat, you say?
yeah, there's not a ton to talk about, I guess. But
I think
it's good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's leagues above the first. I mean, I think as like a cohesive experience, I think there is a very valid point that I might actually agree with, saying that like the first one is better. But like, yeah, if you're just talking about like pure gameplay, like which would I rather play more in interactions with people or those encounters or whatever, bar none, the second one. I mean, I love how you're able to like sprint and dodge and go through the walls. It feels really, I don't know, just like hyperactive. It feels like a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, it's just one of those sequels where it takes pretty much about the exact same combat from the first one, but just enhances it, adds a couple little things, and just adds on to the parts that were there and just makes it better.
It actually mechanically wise, as far as like you think of a sequel like adding mechanics and stuff, it didn't really add many mechanics, which would make you think like, oh, okay, it's more of the same. But like, even though the mechanics are largely the same type of things you're doing, it feels just so much better in this game, and like you feel like you have so much control. Like I've like, and I since playing The Last of Us Part 2, I've gone and played some other games, and I really do kind of feel restricted in the movement, because when you were playing a Ellie or Abby, just like running and diving into some bushes, like being able to go prone or go up or dive, do all this, I felt like when I wanted to do something, I could reflexively just do it.
It's the sense of movement that it nailed. How you're just able to go anywhere and do anything you want to in this space. I think it does really well.
And I think the AI was just like so much better in this one, I think, than the first one, and in a lot of similar games like this. It really did a lot of times feel like, and Jeff talked about like running past some encounters. There was actually times in here where that felt rewarding and gratifying to me. If I was able to sneak past a bunch of people and get out, it felt like, I mean, narratively, it felt like, of course, like, yeah, if you can get out here without fighting, you're going to do it. But it didn't even feel cheap to me. I felt like I had accomplished something where it's like, okay, I actually read their patterns, or like threw a bottle, did this, and I got out. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. You know?
I fucking lived.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the improved stealth mechanics a lot, like the tall grass, the low grass, the silence you're able to make, and obviously the bow and arrow. I think those were standouts. I really like that.
Yeah, 100%.
It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Well, I guess we can talk
Put
about
that on the box. It's good.
William Outlaw. It's good.
Sony's like, no, just it good.
It good.
It good. Well, I guess we can talk about the ending unless there's something else. Still, we've kind of like through different winding orders gotten to like everything else in the game. So
we got the big points.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that ending. William.
We didn't talk about the guitars. But we're about to, I guess.
The fully playable guitar. That was probably a lot of development time that wasn't completely necessary.
No. That was marketing in itself. That was part of their marketing budget, the budget for that.
All the like covers I've seen people do on them is fun.
Yep, that's how you market a game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. What'd you think? I guess we can just talk about the entire like after. I guess let's talk about like the first battle between Abby and Ellie, like going and that like bridging on to the ending. I mean, what did you think when you got to that first battle?
I really didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, I mean, I was still aligned with Ellie the most, so I think part of me wanted her to win for sure. But obviously, you're playing as Abby in that moment, so it's pretty interesting. It's fun seeing the AI Ellie use like the same tactics that you used. I thought that was really fascinating. So yeah, I really didn't know what was going to happen. I was surprised when dog just brushed my feet. I was surprised when Abby let her go. I don't think I saw that. I didn't think Ellie was going to die then, because I don't know what would the message of the game be at that point. But I didn't see. Yeah. I don't think I saw like Abby just letting her go like that. I thought that was a really interesting decision. And then obviously like the time jump was pretty cool. So I don't know. What did y'all think were gonna happen?
I mean, I thought like this is kind of another prime example of why I love Lev so much, because I feel like that was a very, very, very big moment for Lev and Abby. That like if Lev wasn't there, Abby would have killed her. Like that is just what would have happened. But like Lev is what that is when I was already falling for Abby a lot. But like, that was really where I was like, in a lot of ways, Abby is in a very similar way that even though he did bad things, still Ellie kind of saved Joel in a lot of ways. Joel was a terrible man, like wasting away into nothing. True. And Ellie is what, like, when they're in Jackson, they actually kind of look happy, like Ellie kind of like gave Joel's life purpose, and you kind of feel the same way with Lev and Abby, at least for me. And that's what I got out of that moment.
Yeah.
But whenever we got to the Santa, like you did the time skip or whatever,
to the farm.
Yeah, I guess the farm first. We should talk about the farm first. Yeah, I mean that was one of those where it's like it's so happy that you're like, okay, yeah,
where does this mess up?
It's like,
that was a 100% a Red Dead Redemption 1 moment. Wherever you like start. Y'all played that?
Yeah.
Or no?
I played 1.
Yeah,
I played 2.
2 is like one of his favorite games of all time, so you should probably go play 1.
I've only played 1, and it's like my favorite game of all time.
Oh, dude,
so
play 2. Play 2.
It's great.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's I guess I won't. I don't know. Do people know?
Jeff,
the
you
end
have
of
to
1?
know what happens at the end of 1, right? Maybe he doesn't. Wow, that's crazy.
Okay, well, it's you know what I'm talking about, Darby. It's a very similar thing where he's like happy for a minute, and I feel like that's that really was like a serious callback in my mind, because I just remember that moment in Red Dead 1 so specifically. And it's obvious that something not happy is going to happen, and you're just kind of dreading it.
Then Ty did the show with his limp and messed up
which
face.
Was a great moment. Definitely thought he was dead.
Is,
I think everyone.
God, the acting with Dina and Tommy's actors in that scene, it's so crazy, because like that scene, it really feels like your family fighting. Like when she goes out there and she's like, "What the hell was that, Tommy?" or whatever. Just like the entire that entire back and forth, it really did feel like like I've seen my family argue, not about shit this fucked up, but you've seen like it felt very real.
Gotta let Darby go and kill that person.
Yeah, my uncle just came to me and wanted me to go kill a guy.
The man stole his pudding in 2nd grade. Okay,
pretty normal in the Hallman household.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
They take their pudding very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great moment seeing Tommy again, because I thought for sure he was dead. It was good to see him. But of course, it sucked that, this was our second call to action to go kill Abby. So, I mean, I think if there's one thing that this game does super well is that feeling of dread. Like, of you always knowing that something not good is going to happen. And this is a great example of that, where you just know that Ellie is going to make this decision that you probably wouldn't if you were given the option, where you can just stay with Dina and have a good life. So, I don't know. I think the farm did good as a breakup between the sections, and just having you kind of like do stuff around the house, I thought was, just a good medium before you went to Santa Barbara. So,
and you talk about the dread when you get to Santa Barbara. I mean, I think it's a feeling you're honestly supposed to feel, but when I got there, and especially when the Rattler gang started happening and everything, I was like, you're supposed to feel like, oh God, again, there's another evil group and everything. But like, you're not supposed to, that's not supposed to feel good and rewarding. It's supposed to feel like just because you went south doesn't mean that people are any better. Yeah. It's like there are groups like this everywhere, and like people taking advantage of other people.
I understood people who were saying like, what the heck is this like fourth faction showing up in the end of the game? But yeah, I'm with you where I was like, I mean, that's not the point. Like, it would be weird if it was like freaking the Seraphites down there or whatever, like there has to be this fourth faction. It's like this all over. So
it would also be weird if they went down there and it was just peaceful, happy-go-lucky, because that's just not how the world works in the post-apocalypse.
Yeah, there has to be someone else. So it was weird how they like introduced like helmet mechanics in the last 40 minutes of the game.
Like I said, I straight up did not enjoy that whole last section because again, the game had been going on too long, and I was like, all right, let's like, I'm so interested to see where this game ends. I'm pretty done with the combat. Let's go. And it didn't help that, like you said, it's like they're like, oh, we need to spice up the combat to keep them interested right now. When I was in the complete opposite mind space, I'm like, all right, let's go. Come on. Like, let's finish this game.
Let me headshot you.
Maybe it was just because I was in the same headspace as you, where I was just like, I just wanna see where it goes. But I did feel like there was like a weird uptick in difficulty a little bit there, because I didn't die very much, especially in human encounters, but I was very close to dying several times at the Rattler's place. So
yeah, I did die several times. Like that was the most that was the most chaotic. I just like I think there was a flamethrower or something in there. I was just like running around, just like balls to the wall.
Did I miss the flamethrower?
I feel like
I don't think Ellie has a submachine gun that she uses.
Okay, there was some big weapon during that whole last Santa Barbara encounter that Ellie had.
Yeah,
maybe it wasn't flamethrower. There was something like that was like a crazy weapon that was.
I think I completely missed it.
Wild. I feel like it might have been a flamethrower. I don't know. I might have made that up.
Maybe
it was Abby's flamethrower. Like, she didn't have one at that point.
We got to the end for me, and obviously I was like a little more bought into Abby and everything. But when it got to the end, there was that radio call, and like she finds the fireflies. Like that was one of many moments where I started tearing up because it was that was
definitely a moment where I was rooting for Abby. Absolutely, it's like, let her find the fireflies, like she's been through the same hell that Ellie has, maybe worse. Like all of her friends are gone. So yeah, I was definitely rooting for her, and
which tough. I don't know if you know, I'm sure we're about to talk about the last encounter and everything, but people have pretty much verified when you beat the game and you start back the start screen, they're looking at Catalina Island where the fireflies were. So that means Abby and Lev made it to where the fireflies are.
May not necessarily mean the fireflies are there, but they at least made it to their destination.
Yeah, they made it, and then there's another bad faction that got them and killed them. Yeah. But like, we're supposed to believe that they made it there at the
end.
end.
Pretty much what they did there is like Last of Us Part 2?
I hope not, but I also said the same thing for the Last of Us.
I feel like it's gonna happen, but we can talk about it later.
Well, let's talk about the ending. Final battle, and then obviously the guitar scene at the end. What'd you think?
They did a good job of like making me believe that Ellie would still fight Abby, even though it seemed ridiculous. I'll say that. Like, you find her, she's basically crucified with Lev. You let her down, she's emancipated, clearly dying, and you're like so close to letting them go, and then she has that flashback of Joel's like mangled face pretty much, and she's like, I can't do this. I can't let you go. And in that moment, I certainly felt like, and I understood how Ellie is like just reeked with this guilt, and even more so, I think she's reeked with the guilt of having to like face Tommy and Dina possibly, and being like, yeah, I saw her and didn't kill her again. Now, all that being said, it is pretty ridiculous that she fought her after Abby spared her twice. I think, like I said, I think it shows how guilt-ridden she is, that she wants to finish this. She doesn't care if Abby has saved her twice. But, yeah, I don't know. I think in some ways that was a point where I was kind of rooting for Abby instead of Ellie, because it's just like, why would you do this? She's so close to
death.
There
was one thing I wanted to mention this in the last Spoilercast, but I never got a chance. Obviously, like 6 people talking at the same time. I like from the moment I was in the scene and everything, I've fluctuated back and forth. I can't decide. I'd be interested to see what y'all think. I can't decide if I actually believe this would be better or not. But like from right after I played the game, I've been thinking like, I've been wondering, would it have been a stronger ending if she had like, when it looks like she's gonna let them go, and she's like, just like kneeling there, like if she had just actually like cut her down, and then like Abby just starts walking away and getting on the boat, if she had just actually let them go and said like didn't have that final encounter or whatever, like and actually just like, you know what I mean, like she cut them down, she just like it's like fighting in her head, and then they just go. Like I don't know, because like I did agree with Will when that fight was going on, it got to the point like that fight was maybe a little too climactic, where it just felt like, okay, geez, it's like I don't know, like I don't even know if I fully believe that myself, because that fight also brought a lot of emotion out of me, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Serious.
I like the idea. I mean, I like the idea of it just kind of, like you see that she's a broken person and you're able to let her go in that moment, spare her like she spared you.
Right. Like Ellie
Even
just
though
couldn't
I
do
guess,
it. But,
I guess you do that at the end, but
yeah.
it would feel maybe stronger without that climax like you're talking about. I don't know, Jeff.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, that scene where where it's the flashback to literally the day before this junk happens, where Ellie and Joel are talking, and Ellie ends with, "I don't know if I could forgive you, but I like to try."
Yeah, best.
Where was that during that whole thing? Was it like
it was after?
Okay, it was
after the fight. Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, that obviously had to be there, and it kind of explains like.
But the guitar, the scene of him like playing the guitar or whatever was when she was drowning him or drowning her.
That's right. There was a flash of that, and then we saw the whole scene later. That's right.
I think that like I don't know if I can forgive you, but I tried. That was like after the dance scene too, right?
That's at the farm.
I think both of those were after the Abby fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing happens. Like I was just kind of like I almost like part of me would have appreciated if this game was like, we're not going to end with a crazy button mashy fight. We're going to end. We're going to end with a like poignant moment. Yeah.
This like that is one of the only moments where you're like, all right, I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
Which can be good or bad, but I think it maybe lessened the blow a little bit in this one.
And it would have been something that people would have been like, "That's it, that's the end." But like,
absolutely.
Well, I didn't think about what you just brought up, Dari, but I'm kind of thinking about it now. This is me thinking of it just here, but I feel like maybe that wouldn't have changed how I felt at the end, like checking that fight out, which I think says something about the fight. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I think the fight was just a risk that would may only hurt what they try to do at the end, because she still just watches them go. I guess okay. So I guess the one thing it does influence is Ellie getting her fingers bitten off, so she can't play the guitar.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Well, I mean, and there's so. I mean, what I love about The Last of Us is that we're used to kind of video game narratives being like, this is the emotion you should be feeling, and this is the emotion you should be feeling here. That's like very structured. Last of Us, it's like, you don't know. It's an experience that you do, and you think differently about it every time you think about it. Damn it, Discord.
Damn it, Discord. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Because there's also things like, obviously, I can't even completely unpack what it means, but I know that whenever Ellie walked over there and held that knife to Lev's throat, I had a visceral reaction. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I like it. I still like it. I agree with kind of what Will was like getting at the beginning. Whenever I was in the middle of that fight, I did start to. That was one of the times where he said, I'm playing a video game.
Yeah.
It felt like, and I've played other Uncharted games that end with a really bad physical fight. It's like, I felt like.
Stop trying to be Metal Gear Solid 4.
And like, with everything else this game does, like bucking trends, like I really did think whenever she cut her down and they were just walking to the boat, I was like, okay, the game's going to end without a fight, and I'm like, that's fine, that might be stronger, but but I still did think it was strong, and it was a moment where like Ellie doesn't even know what she feels, and like I feel like there's so many different ways you can unpack that scene, and obviously we'll talk about the final scene too. But
yeah,
it was they definitely like went through the ringer. But I can also understand. This is where we talk about like I understand the full spectrum of emotions. I understand someone who gets to the end of this and that whole fight scene happens, and then Abby goes away and Ellie stays or whatever. I understand someone who sees that and was like, well, what was the point of the game then? I kind of get it, honestly. I mean, like, it really, to me, I'm a sucker for, like, kind of ambiguous stories and stories that, like,
me too. Yeah.
are left up to interpretation, not like stories that almost seem like a slice of life rather than like set up cinematic story. I like those too, but I am a sucker for just like seeing a window into this, and it's like you take your own meaning for it. I love that kind of shit, but I totally get how someone could feel like I just played 30 hours and nothing like we're in the same spot.
I also feel like though, if you feel that way, you miss the entire point of the story.
You do, but
so it's like, yeah.
What's the point? Literally, almost everyone who had an actual name died.
Everyone's a bad guy.
But
everyone's dead. JJ's the only pure one left in the world.
JJ will sit the throne.
Which one is JJ? Which one's JJ?
The baby. Jesse Jr.
Oh.
The potato.
Yeah.
Love potato. That's funny.
All right. I guess let's close it out. Scene. Let's close it out with last final guitar scene. And what did you think of that? And where do you think she's going?
Yeah, man, that scene hurt.
It hurts. It fucking hurts.
Like, God, I was talking to some friends. It's like, it's one thing to, go back home. Basically your family is gone. You're alone now. Like, that's a heck of a way to end anything. But man, to have that last moment where you are playing this guitar, this main theme you've had throughout the entire game that is, your surrogate father song, and you're unable to play it, that's really rubbing salt in the wound. And I think it was, I've said this a lot, but it's very effective. It was interesting for me because I was playing it. I was just kind of like going through the motion on the controller, and I was like, am I like not hitting the right button? Like, what am I doing wrong? Because I could tell something was off, and it wasn't until like near the end where I was like, oh no. and it just hit, and that was tough. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that scene except that it hurt bad.
I had a similar type of reaction where at first I'm like, I'm just really fucking this up, I guess, and there's like, oh shit, fuck. It's like, damn it. But yeah, it's very powerful, and like a lot of people are not going to like it, but I really do like the ending of just, she walks off, and it's like, you don't know. I've seen like very compelling arguments that like people talk about the fact that right before that scene happens, or like right after, I think it's after she played, whenever the scene happens, when you see the dance, and then that final talk with Joel, when she says, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'd like to try. I think there's a compelling argument to be made that is maybe hinting that she's going back to Dina, and like hoping that Dina can try to forgive her and whatever. I could see that, but you can also see it.
Yeah, it's hard to think of because obviously open up for interpretation. But like, how does she not go back to Jackson, or at least go by there?
She has to go.
If nothing else,
Tommy's there.
Yeah.
I understand you wouldn't want to see Tommy because you didn't kill the person you went out to kill. But I feel like, she is alone for the first time. And I feel like she has to go back to something she knows. It doesn't make sense for her to do anything else.
Even if it's temporary and she planned to be temporary, I can't see her not going back by there, maybe. But who knows?
I don't know. Jackson might be painful, to go back to. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I think Ellie is a very, very changed person at this point. It's hard. It's hard to know. You also get I get slightly a sense of the old dog that goes into the woods to die, basically. To spare other people. But it's like I don't think that's happening. But it's just there's obviously And I struggled with because my visceral reaction right now, I feel like I'm gonna say the same exact thing I did for the first Last of Us. I'm like, this ending is perfect, cut it here. But that's the same thing I said the first time. So I don't know. Yeah.
So with that, that's something obviously I thought about, been thinking about too. Like, had the same kind of things. Like, do we need a sequel to Last of Us? And I think they did it. Or at least a general idea about the best way you could, where you use Joel's decision to pretty much use that as the catalyst for the story of the whole game. I feel like there's nothing exactly like that, from the ending of this game to do that for another game, unless you just do the fact that Ellie and Abby are alive.
Yeah, and if it's like, if there's any element of another revenge tale, I feel like I'm like, no, you can't do that. Yeah,
yeah, I don't think they would do that. Not assuming there's any like no catalyst that's set up, and if they do a third one.
And I almost feel like, even if like, you know, you could like explore Abby and Lev more, but in kind of a way, I mean, because I do think Last of Us Part 2, whether you like it better than Last of Us 1 or not, like Last of Us Part 2 is just jam-packed with narrative and character growth and everything. I kind of feel like Abby and Lev have already had their game.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like they've already had their Last of Us tale just in the half of this game. I don't, like, you know, I struggle to think of a way that they could do it that wouldn't feel like just going through the motions or like cheapening it in some way. I would obviously have faith if they decide to do it, but I don't know. What did you think, Will? About a sequel and where Ellie's going.
Yeah, first of all, I'll say that I feel like Last of Us Part 1 was like, when I was thinking about a sequel to that game, it was like, I don't think they should make one, but I really want it. And I feel like with this one, it's like they shouldn't make one, but we'll probably get it. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't think we will. Yeah, go ahead, Will. But I honestly don't think we are going to go another one. Personally, I don't think we will.
Part of me is 50-50 on it, but what made me lean me more to maybe not is the fact that, especially since game development takes so much longer, Naughty Dogs just kind of want to do something different at this point.
That would be my prediction.
To the point where it's like, okay, Last of Us kind of done. They don't really have anything. They don't want to commit to this world and story maybe again.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think of like, I mean, obviously like the TV show, and I just don't get the feeling that Druckmann's done with this. Like, maybe he's done with Ellie's story. I don't feel like they're done with the world. But you don't know. What was I gonna say? I don't know what I was gonna say.
Sorry,
you talk.
I interrupted you.
Okay. I don't know. Do you think it would have been stronger if Ellie died?
Maybe it depends how.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a hard one. I mean, I think there definitely could have been a version of this where she did, but like, I do feel like both of them being alive kind of gives this ending a little more weight in just the like, where is this going? And it feels like the message of the game kind of gets to carry on, whereas I feel like if Ellie had died, it kind of feels like the message of this game just kind of ends with her and just kind of like ends with a period and a like, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain it exactly, but I feel like both of them being alive kind of makes it, I feel like it gives the game more meaning, if that makes sense.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So I guess like part of the reason why I think that a third part or whatever is possible, even if it's not probable, is that I think, so the biggest thing that the second part just totally didn't even really touch on was Ellie's immunity, you know? Like that is the central part of the first game, and I totally get and love that that's not part of the second one at all. Like this is a personal mission. Really her immunity is almost more of just a part of her character than like a mechanic or a story point. But I feel like there's still that kind of like Chekhov's gun type of effect for her immunity, where it's like, that's got to go somewhere, right? And I understand if it doesn't, and I understand that maybe people would say it's contrived if like somehow that ends up meaning something, but I feel like there is a chance that it will.
I think it could. I think Naughty Dog kind of, and partly for the chance of just making that not a possibility and just part of the story to drive some of it, writing in that Abby's father was the only one who could make a thing, which
that's a good point.
They did that in there to make it like, oh, it's doom and gloom, but that's what they knew about in one part of the country. They could easily just, oh, this guy on the other side of the country, or from a different continent or something it's smart enough to do it potentially. So I do think if they do a part 3, that might be what they go with, if they use something from their game and they use these characters again. Not necessarily want that, or it's probable, but I could see them doing that. They did a good job of writing that possibility out, or kind of explaining it if they didn't want to do it, but also like the world's a big place. They could bring someone out of nowhere and it could make sense.
Yeah, and people might agree with me on this. Again, I'm kind of a sucker to subversive narratives and like things that. Part of what makes The Last of Us so special to me is that like it has the immunity thing, and that's something that kind of makes it seem like it's going one direction, and honestly kind of a somewhat generic direction. I think I think in a lot of ways she has the cure or something kind of just feels like a typical zombie thing. What makes me fall in love with the story is that is just used as a plot device that is then like is, like you said, kind of secondary. And I think that makes the fact that the immunity kind of means so little in this game, I think is like actually really cool and kind of a cool subversion, because like my instant reaction, and when you say like, oh, the third one's going to be all about like getting the cure and immunity, I'm just like, I can't get excited for that. That just sounds so generic to me. Like, sure. I love so much that like, if you go into The Last of Us, and especially after playing The Last of Us Part 1, your just immediate reaction just watching entertainment and everything is going to be like, oh yeah, well they're going to find the cure and put that out there. And like, I like this is like, no, she could die at any minute and the cure dies with her and all this other stuff. And it's like, I love that that's not as important. And I kind of, for me, feel like it might weaken the story if it is brought back in a way. Or at least it's just not going to feel as like gut punchy. It's just going to feel like, okay, zombie story,
Yeah, I agree. That's just, like I said, I feel like if they were to make a new Last of Us, it would have to be, they would probably use some kind of plot thing from this one, and that's like one that makes sense, even if it is, like you said, a more generic thing. My reason,
you have to remember, this is rooted in a very generic revenge tale. They made it incredible. So I don't know. True.
When they took it, that's what The Last of Us has, a lot of like tropey, like generic stuff that it starts with. But I feel like, especially Last of Us Part 2, I feel like takes some of those and it like some of those tropey things and does start to turn them on their head. Like, it's still like, it is in its base story, it is like kind of, it's the road still, obviously the first one that was like the base platform of it, but especially in the second one, I love that they like, you think we're going this direction, like, no, we're not. And I think the cure could have been one of those. Even at the first part of this game, that was still like open. It was still open that might be something that comes into play. But I think it's even stronger that Ellie knows that that's within her, but she's still, it's not really, I don't know, strong.
Now that they've opened the door to you like not playing as Joel or Ellie, I feel like if they do a third one, I almost see like a Walking Dead season 3 or 4 or whatever, where like Clementine is just kind of like a side character and not the main person you play as. I could see that happening, where Ellie is like part of your posse or whatever, but isn't your protagonist. But who's to say?
I feel like if there is a part 3, Ellie will not be in it much.
Yeah, it would have to almost be like cameos or something.
Yeah.
I feel like part of what they could do is the new Fireflies or whatever with Abby and stuff. They got ways to do something and come up with something. They set themselves up for it. I just don't know if they'll do it just partly. Again, games are longer to make. We got 4 Naughty Dog games last generation. This current generation, we got 2. I guess 3 if you count Lost Legacy.
Yeah. And just part of it, I know it's just a feeling. It's no like real evidence or anything, but like this just feels like such a just big monumental game and such a like kind of exclamation point, similar to a way that Red Dead Redemption 2 felt. Like when Red Dead Redemption 2 was done, I am like I would be shocked if there's another Red Dead Redemption of any kind, any other game in that world, because that game was just such a magnum opus, such a like you got fucking 3 games in one almost with that. Like, it just felt like such an exclamation point and such a like Rockstar is making a point with that game. And I kind of feel like Naughty Dog did the same thing here.
Well,
Like,
Derby,
this feels like the commanding, you know, curtain closing of Last of Us.
I have a point.
Well,
But that's
Derby,
just
they're
how-
not making a Red Dead 3 because they're going to be working on Grand Theft Auto 5 to the end of time.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
only that. No
They are
GTA
done
6.
making games. Yeah, they're done making games.
No more new games from Rockstar.
More DLC.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts? We did talk for a long time, but this has been fantastic. We could do like 5 spoiler casts for this damn game.
Will we break our Final Fantasy 7 record?
I don't know. We're close. I don't know.
No, I'm talking about what amount of spoiler
With the
casts.
amount of okay, yeah.
We're going to add to it when Jacob finished the game.
Hey,
Where is he at? And is he playing Last of
I
Us?
don't think he's played it all, and I think he knows everything that happens in it. So that's good.
That's really sad. That's really sad.
Yeah.
Oh well.
All right, Will. Any last thoughts?
That's it from me. Last of Us Part 2 is up there in the greatest games that I've ever played, even with some faults that I think everyone can at least see and understand, but I still think it's leagues above literally like 99% of games that we play. So
And I've just never had a game that was so conducive to like discussing. I mean, the fact that again we've talked for an hour and 40 minutes, and I feel like every like 5 minutes one of us says something. It's like, oh shit, yeah, oh shit, yeah. It's like,
Well,
oh shit.
it's kind of funny, like you say that and Final Fantasy 7 are like the marquee titles for
Yeah.
that. We just got them both so close together.
Yep. Yeah, but we talked for like weeks about like Final Fantasy, and one of us would be like, "Oh shit, this one!" Oh. Obviously, that one's a lot more wacky, and this one's a more like.
Did you know in the Final Fantasy
Morose.
7 light novel?
Yeah. Oh gosh! All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. William, where can people find you on Twitter?
Oh, they can find my hot takes at JW_outlaw.
Hell yeah. You can look forward to Will on more Nerds at Large content. If not before, then at the beginning of September, we'll have our betting results.
That's right. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I'll be here as a victor, the winner.
We'll see, Will.
We'll see what I decide.
We'll see what Nat
Also-
determines.
I might have to redo my my punishment because TikTok's gonna get banned.
I know, yeah. Damn.
Oh,
shame.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Will. It was a lot of fun.
All right. See ya.
Peace. Bye.